Hi. First off, I wanted to say I am a little bit nervous to be here today, not because of anything having to do with public speaking, but I drove up from Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I live normally, and I realized this is Michigan, and we're in the middle of football season. But Muskegon, I know speakers will say this often, Muskegon has a very special place in my heart, for reasons which I'll get into in a few moments. But it is an honor to be invited to speak here today. 2 summers ago in 2011, many of you might remember what was happening in the country, and it was something called flash mobs. Now, flash mobs have been going on for quite a while, but they used to be fun. People would get together and they'd sing and they'd dance in a group in the middle of a square or a mall or something like that. In 2011, kids started using social media like Twitter and BlackBerry Messenger and Facebook and text messages to start organizing to a dangerous kind of flash mob. And what they would do is they would tell all their friends to go to a certain place. And they'd go to that place, and oftentimes there were stores, and a whole bunch of kids would just take everything that they could find from that store, just indiscriminately. They just strip all the shelves. And then sometimes people get beat up. I think somebody died in Philadelphia during one of these. But it was very dangerous, and there was a lot of fear, especially in Cleveland. There were 2 almost flash mobs that occurred in Cleveland on Coventry and in Shaker Heights. And there wasn't any danger. No stores were robbed or anything, but there was a palpable sense of fear in the communities because we didn't know what could happen. In September of 2011, I was with a bunch of other young developing leaders in Cleveland at a Cleveland Bridge Builders conference run by the Leadership Center there. And it was the opening retreat for the bridge builders. During a break, a few of us were talking about these flash mobs that had occurred and how they were very dangerous for the community. And I remember, it was just during a break, casual conversation, I remember thinking there were 60 bridge builders in the room, all generally young professionals. What if all 60 of us went to a store, and I had a store in mind, Salty Not Sweet. It's owned by my friend Kendra. All 60 of us could go to this store and each spend $20. And for us, $20 wouldn't be that much money. But collectively, in an hour or an hour and a half, we would spend $1,200. And for a store like Salty Not Sweet, that would be a lot of money. So I suggested it to the people I was talking to, and my friend Marty said, "Oh, yeah, we should just call it cash mobs." And I'm a big believer that good names can really carry something. So immediately I just thought, oh man, that would be really fantastic, let's do it. So what I did, we went back into session and we borrowed my friend Erica Dahl's computer and we immediately got the Gmail account. We got a blog at cashmobs.wordpress.com and then we got a Twitter handle. And we let it sit for almost 2 months. And Marty emailed me, and I remember this email. That's my watch. He emailed me and he said, "Hey, we're going to have to do something with this. The holidays are coming up. We're going to have to do something or else we should just let it slide." And I remember typing out this email saying, "You know what? We're both really busy. We got a lot going on. You have a family. We have work and bridge builders. Let's not do it." And then I thought, well, what would happen if we did? Why don't we? I mean, what, we're going to fail? That's not so bad, so let's do it. So I deleted the email, and I sent back an email saying, all right, let's go. Now, we started organizing. We set up we found a store, and we based the store decision on, we wanted someplace that was locally owned, independently operated, and that did good in the community, that really gave back to the community. So we found a store called Visible Voice Books in Tremont, Ohio. And we set up a Facebook invitation and then started going on Twitter. And we organized our first cash mob back in November. I think it was November 16th, 2011. And we had about 40 to 45 people show up. Our first goal was that we only wanted one person to show up that we didn't know, because we knew we could get our friends out, but we didn't know if we could get complete strangers to come and spend money at these stores. So we got about 40 to 45 people. They did 8 times the amount of business they normally would, so about a week's worth of business. And it was a success. 2 television stations showed up as well. Now, when we were organizing this on Facebook, a lot of my other friends started seeing what we were doing. So my friends from junior high church camp, Lauren Way and Kelly Hutton, my friends from high school, like Lisa Gilmore in Los Angeles. All these people started seeing what we were doing, and they said, hey, we want to do that in our community. How do we do that? So we set up part of the blog saying, this is how you can do it in your community. If you read the tipping point, these were the very early adapters. Now, what also happened was we ended up getting all this media attention. First, we got in the back page of Crain's Cleveland, a reporter named Michelle Park knew somebody named Jeff Malbasa, who I knew. So we had this 3 degrees of separation to get into Crain's Cleveland business periodical. Then my friend Mansfield wrote a piece for it on Cool Cleveland, which is a blog up in Cleveland. Mike McIntyre from the Plain Dealer saw that piece, did a piece in the Plain Dealer, which is the regional paper, and we were over the moon at that point. And then he talked to a reporter from NPR named Brian Bull. And he's the local reporter in Cleveland, but he knew Tess Vigeland, who does Marketplace Money in Los Angeles. Immediately got us on NPR. In a week and a half, we went from back page of Crain's to every single NPR station in the country. And that was where, after these early adapters, then there was a whole nother wave of people. I wanted to read an email I got from November 29th, 2011. And this is the kind of email that we were getting after the NPR piece. Hi there. After hearing the piece on NPR a week ago on the concept of cash mobs, I decided to organize one in my hometown. I have the Facebook event page set up. I've been Twittering about it. I have our local paper involved. And I have a couple questions. What do you do to make sure the business has enough merchandise, and do you do anything about security? Of course, any additional advice would be great. It's scheduled for December 14th. Thanks so much for the idea. Now, that email, the reason I am so fond of Muskegon was that was one of the first people out that we didn't know to organize a cash mob. And it's Amanda Shunta, who's up here in the audience today. And yes, thanks. I was going to ask you to give her a round of applause because that was where we started to think that this thing was going to take off, was when we started getting these emails from people like Amanda. And we got really touched to know that other people were actually going to be picking this up. So cash mobs as a movement is people like Amanda. It's people in communities who are organizing for their communities. And we have about 400 around the world now. One of the first ones, though, was right here in your hometown. We're interested in supporting local businesses, but it's not necessarily small businesses. I had a couple from Arkansas who were staying with me about, I want to say this was about a month ago, and I remember coming home, and I looked in the fridge, and they had a bottle of Walmart milk, and I got really angry because I thought, they know how important it is for me to support local businesses. They're bringing Walmart milk into my house and drinking it. And then I stopped myself and I just started laughing because for them, Walmart's local. It's a Bentonville, Arkansas corporation. So for them, they were supporting the hometown businesses. But it is the local businesses that make our communities distinct. You don't go to New York for Arby's. You don't go to Chicago for Pizza Hut. You don't go to New Orleans for Subway. You're going to these communities for their local businesses, and it's local businesses in places like Muskegon that make it really special. I stayed at the Shoreline Inn last night, and we had beers, some really amazing beers, the name of which I can't actually say on this broadcast, but from the lake house. And then I had breakfast today at Mike's Landing, which, if you've never been there, it's a really interesting place. But really, the first thing about cash mobs is that we're supporting these local businesses. Second is that we also are supporting local communities. And communities are people. They're face-to-face. And that's something that we've gotten away from. I used to be a food blogger in Cleveland, and I remember watching Twitter when I was friends with all the other food bloggers. And there was an entire conversation on Twitter between food bloggers who were out to dinner with each other. So they were sitting across the table from each other, and they were talking to each other on Twitter as if they weren't in the same room together. And I thought, that's absolutely ridiculous. And that's, I think, where we're going. And we can see that with text messaging and Twitter and Facebook and all these other social media platforms. And we're getting away from what we've been doing for tens of thousands of years, which is meeting face-to-face. It's talking to people and actually talking to them and seeing their reactions. Those are the important things that I think we're getting away from. And so cash mobs is actually a diversion from that. And I think that's how it connects to communities, is that what we're doing is we're taking people and we're giving them a common experience and then having them take that common experience and meet face-to-face and interact with each other. And so that's where the community building aspect comes in, and that's why I think it's very important for, regardless of what you're doing, get away from your computers and televisions and telephones and actually talk to people face-to-face. We're facing a lot of problems right now in the country and in the world, really. I mean, this is all about from global to regional to communities to individuals. And as a global problem, we're looking at things like global warming and energy sources. Regional problems, we have poverty. Communities, we have getting away from each other. But what we have also are people like Amanda and people like Anthony, who spoke before me, doing something about their communities and really working to make their communities a better place. So regardless of how you feel about national or international politics or economics, what gives me hope are the people like Amanda and like the 399 other organizers that we have around the world now who are actually doing things in their communities and doing good. So I thank them and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to spread the word about cash mobs. Regardless of whether you participate in cash mobs or not, I urge you each to do something in your communities to do good. Thank you.